You can find peace even when nothing goes as you hoped. When you lose something, when it hurts, when life seems to have no answers. In a world that changes fast and sometimes without warning, there are those who've discovered a peace that doesn't depend on circumstances. A quiet ditcher, a deep and stable inner calm. This isn't a magic formula. It's ancient wisdom. It's Buddhism applied to real life. Today I'm going to share with you 10 Buddhist teachings that can help you find peace in any situation, even the ones that once stole your calm. Music, and I promise you something. If you listen with an open heart, you might begin to see your life through different eyes. Remember this. Peace isn't always loud. Sometimes it's simply the quiet knowing that you're exactly where you need to be. These aren't my teachings. They're wisdom that's been alive for over 2,000 years, helping countless people navigate loss, change, uncertainty, and fear. I'm simply passing them along to you. Maybe find a cozy spot, grab a warm drink if you'd like, and settle in for the next few hours. This isn't a lecture. It's more like a conversation with someone who understands what it means to struggle. If you're here, it's for a reason. Thank you for being part of this conscious community. Let's begin. Have you ever noticed how grief feels like it will never end? How in the darkest moments you can't imagine the sun rising again? Or maybe you've experienced the opposite. A beautiful moment so perfect you wanted to freeze time to make it stay forever. We all do this. We treat our experiences as if they're permanent. When we're suffering, we think this is how it will always be. When we're joyful, we cling tight, terrified it will slip away. But there's a truth the Buddha taught 2,500 years ago that changes everything once you truly understand it. Everything that arises also passes. This is one of the most powerful teachings in Buddhism and paradoxically one of the most forgotten in the chaos of daily life. Everything that enters your life, an emotion, a situation, a loss, a joy, a mental storm, is impermanent. Nothing lasts forever, not the pain, not the euphoria, not the darkest night, not the brightest light. Life is like water. It moves, it transforms, it flows. And suffering appears when we try to make it stop. Think about it. When you're going through something difficult, a breakup, an internal crisis, a loss, the teaching of impermanence isn't meant to minimize your pain. It's not saying just get over it or don't feel sad. That would be cruel and untrue. What this teaching offers is something different. It reminds you that you are not your pain. You're experiencing something temporary even though right now it feels eternal. We resist this truth because accepting it feels like giving up control. If everything changes, then nothing is secure. Nothing is guaranteed. And that terrifies us, so we hold on. We clench our fists around what we love, trying to keep it from leaving. We push away what hurts, trying to make it disappear faster, but neither works. The nature of reality is change. Every single thing you see, touch, feel, or think is in constant motion. Your body is changing. Right now, as you listen to this, cells are dying and being born. Your thoughts are changing. One moment here, the next moment gone. The people you love are changing. You are changing. And here's what's beautiful about this. Once you stop fighting impermanence and start understanding it, something shifts. You begin to see that this constant change isn't a curse. It's the doorway to freedom. Let me tell you a story. There was once a young monk who lived in a monastery high in the mountains. His teacher, an elderly master with kind eyes and weathered hands, had given him a ceramic cup many years before. It was a simple cup, unglazed clay, rough to the touch, the color of earth after rain. But to the young monk, it was precious. His teacher had shaped it with his own hands and given it to him on the day he took his vows. Every morning the monk would use this cup for tea. He would hold it carefully, wash it gently, place it on a special shelf where the morning light touched it first. He loved that cup. One autumn morning, as golden leaves drifted past the windows, the monk was carrying his tea across the wooden floor of the meditation hall. His foot caught on the edge of a mat. Time seemed to slow. He watched the cup slip from his hands, turn once in the air, and shatter against the stone floor. Pieces scattered everywhere, some large, some no bigger than grains of rice. The tea pulled dark against the gray stone. The monk stood frozen, staring at the fragments. His eyes filled with tears. He carefully gathered every piece, cradling them in his robe, and went to find his teacher. The old master was sitting by the window, watching the leaves fall. The monk knelt before him, opened his robe, and the broken pieces spilled out. "Master," he said, his voice breaking, "it's gone. The cup you gave me. I've broken what I loved most." The teacher looked at the shattered clay for a long moment. Then he looked at his student with infinite gentleness. "Tell me," the master said softly, "did you love the cup, or did you love the illusion that it would always be there?" The monk opened his mouth to answer, then closed it. The question settled into him like a stone dropping into still water. The master continued, his voice quiet but clear. "From the moment I shaped that clay, it was already broken. Everything that comes into form is already moving toward formlessness. The cup was never permanent. Your love for it was real, but your belief that it would always exist, that was the illusion. And that illusion is what's breaking your heart right now, not the cup itself." The monk sat very still. "Everything breaks eventually," the teacher said. "Clay returns to earth, bodies return to dust, moments dissolve into memory. This isn't tragedy. It's simply the nature of existence. When you understand this deeply, you can love without terror. You can hold without grasping. You can let go without bitterness." The old master smiled then and picked up one of the larger pieces of clay. "You know what this broken cup is teaching you?" He turned the fragment in the light. "That everything you love is precious exactly because it won't last forever. Love it now, love it fully. And when it changes, because it will, let that love transform, too." The young monk looked down at the broken pieces, and for the first time, he saw them differently, not as a tragedy, but as a truth. This story holds one of Buddhism's deepest truths. The Buddha taught that all conditioned things, which means everything that comes into existence through causes and conditions, are impermanent. In the ancient language of Pali, the word is ana. It's one of the three marks of existence that the Buddha said characterizes all of life. He didn't teach this to make us sad or nihilistic. He taught it to free us from suffering. Because when you deeply understand that everything changes, you stop demanding that life be different than it is. You stop exhausting yourself trying to make temporary things permanent. You stop living in constant fear of loss. Instead, you learn to be present with what is while it is. This is what liberation looks like in the Buddhist sense. Not escaping from change, but being at peace within it. So, how do you work with this teaching in your actual life? Start by watching your emotions like you'd watch weather passing through the sky. When anger arises, notice it. Don't push it away. Don't judge yourself for feeling it, but also don't believe it will last forever. Say to yourself, "This is anger and it's changing." When sadness comes, let it be there. Feel it fully, but hold it lightly. This is sadness and it's changing. Even joy, especially joy, practice this with. When something wonderful happens, be fully present for it. Don't cloud it by worrying about when it will end. Instead, let yourself think, "This is beautiful, and I'm here for it now," knowing it will change. There's a phrase that's helped countless people navigate difficult times. For simple words, this too is changing. Not this too shall pass, which can feel dismissive, but this too is changing. It's gentler, more accurate, because nothing passes and disappears completely. Everything transforms into something else. Your grief will change into different grief, then into memory, then into wisdom. Your anxiety will change into calm, then perhaps into other feelings, then into understanding. Nothing stays the same. And here's the paradox that makes this teaching so profound. Impermanence isn't a punishment, it's a blessing. It means that this moment, right now, the one you're living as you hear these words, is completely unique. It will never happen again in exactly this way. The sound of your breath right now is unrepeatable. The way the light falls where you are is singular. This present moment is both ordinary and absolutely sacred precisely because it's temporary. When the Buddha taught about impermanence, he wasn't being pessimistic. He was pointing toward a deeper way of living. If you truly understand that everything changes, you start to notice what doesn't change. The awareness that watches it all, the stillness beneath the movement. The peace that exists regardless of conditions. Take a moment now. Just breathe. Think about something you're holding on to. Maybe an emotion you can't seem to let go of. Maybe a situation you're resisting. Maybe a version of yourself you're trying to keep alive even though you've already changed. Ask yourself gently, what would it feel like to acknowledge that this is already changing? Not to force it to change, not to push it away, but simply to recognize its temporary nature. And here's the thing about this teaching. It applies to everything. Your hardest moment right now is changing. Your deepest wound is changing. Your identity is changing. Even your understanding of these words is changing as you hear them. The Buddhist path asks you to do something that feels counterintuitive. To traverse your pain rather than escape it. To feel it rather than numb it. To observe it rather than become it. Because when you stop resisting what is and start being present with it, knowing it will change, you discover a freedom that circumstances can't touch. Every time life becomes difficult, remember this teaching like a gentle friend reminding you of the truth. This is changing. And every time you experience something beautiful, remember it too. This is changing. So, I'm going to be fully present for it right now. That's how impermanence becomes wisdom instead of sorrow. And this brings us naturally to a question. If everything changes, why do we suffer so much when things do? Why does change feel like loss? The answer lies in our next teaching, one that goes even deeper into the heart of human suffering. Because the pain doesn't come from change itself. It comes from how tightly we hold on trying to stop the river from flowing. Think about someone you love or something you treasure. Now imagine losing it. Feel what happens in your body when you imagine that loss. The tightness in your chest, the fear that rises, the thought, I can't live without this. We've all been there. That moment when we realize how tightly we're holding on to a person, a job, a version of ourselves, a dream of how life should be. And the tighter we hold, the more it hurts. This brings us to one of the most challenging and liberating teachings in Buddhism. The Buddha said that suffering doesn't come from what happens to us. It comes from how we hold on to things, how we resist their changing, how we demand that life bend to our expectations. In other words, we don't suffer because we lose something. We suffer because we insisted it should stay. This is one of the pillars of Buddhist understanding, and it might be one of the hardest truths to accept because it confronts us directly with the root of our pain. The Buddha taught that suffering, what he called dukkha, arises from tanha, which means craving or thirst, and apana, which means clinging or grasping. Let's be clear about what this means. It's not saying you shouldn't care about things. It's not saying you shouldn't love people. That would be a cold, inhuman teaching. And Buddhism isn't that. What it's saying is something more subtle and more profound. There's a difference between loving and clinging. Love is open. Love says, I care deeply about you, and I want you to be free, even if that freedom takes you away from me. Love is present. Love appreciates what is here now without demanding it stay forever. Clinging, on the other hand, is born from fear. Fear of loss, fear of emptiness, fear of change, fear of being without the thing or person we believe we need in order to be whole. Clinging says, you must stay exactly as you are because I built my sense of safety around you. Clinging says, if this changes, I won't survive. And here's what happens when we live from that place of clinging. Every moment becomes tinged with anxiety. We can't fully enjoy what we have because we're terrified of losing it. We try to control people, situations, even our own feelings, desperately attempting to freeze life in place. But life won't freeze. It keeps flowing, changing, moving, and every time it does, we feel like something is being torn from our hands. The teaching isn't that you shouldn't care. The teaching is that clinging doesn't protect you from loss. It just makes you suffer before the loss even happens. Let me share a story that illuminates this. There was a monk, young, earnest, devoted to his practice. He lived in a small monastery nestled in a valley where mist gathered each morning like a blessing. His teacher was a woman known throughout the region for her wisdom, though she lived simply, owned almost nothing, and spoke rarely. One year, on the anniversary of the monk taking his vows, his teacher gave him a gift. It was a bowl, a begging bowl made of dark wood, smooth as river stone, light as a whisper in his hands. The teacher had carved it herself over many months, and into the bottom she had etched a single lotus flower. Use this for your practice, she told him. Let it remind you why you're here. The monk treasured that bowl. Each morning he would carry it through the village, receiving offerings of rice and vegetables from people who respected the monastery. Each evening he would clean it with great care, running his fingers over the carved lotus, feeling its smooth petals. The bowl became to him more than an object. It was his connection to his teacher, proof of his commitment, a sacred trust. Years passed. The bowl aged beautifully, its wood darkening with time and use, taking on a deep luster. Then one winter morning, as the monk was crossing a wooden bridge over the stream that ran behind the monastery, his sandal caught on a loose board. He stumbled. The bowl flew from his hands. He watched. It felt like watching in slow motion as the bowl arced through the cold air and disappeared into the rushing water below. The stream was swollen from recent rain, moving fast and dark. The bowl was gone in an instant, swept downstream toward the river, toward the sea, toward places he would never reach. The monk stood on the bridge, frozen. Then he fell to his knees and wept. He wept not just that day, but for days after. He couldn't eat. He couldn't meditate. He felt as though he had lost something irreplaceable, as though part of himself had been swept away with that wooden bowl. His teacher noticed, of course. She watched him move through the monastery like a ghost, his eyes distant, his practice hollow. Finally, one evening, as the sun was setting, she asked him to walk with her in the garden. They walked in silence for a while, their feet crunching on the gravel path. Then the teacher stopped beside a cherry tree, its branches bare in the winter cold. "Tell me," she said gently, "what have you lost?" "The bowl you gave me," the monk said, his voice breaking. "The one you made with your own hands. It's gone." "I see," the teacher said. She looked up at the bare branches above them. "And what did that bowl mean to you?" "Everything." He whispered. "It meant I was worthy. It meant you believed in me. It meant I belonged here." The teacher turned to him then, and her eyes were infinitely kind. "My dear student," she said, "you never needed that bowl to be worthy. You don't need any object to prove you belong. What you're grieving isn't the bowl. It's the illusion that your value depended on possessing it." The monk looked at her, tears streaming down his face. "I carved that bowl with love," the teacher continued, "and I gave it to you with love. But I never gave you your worthiness. You already had that. The bowl was just a bowl. Beautiful, yes. Useful, yes. But in the end, just a piece of wood that came from a tree and will eventually return to the earth one way or another." She touched his shoulder gently. "You transformed that bowl into something else in your mind, into proof, into security, into identity. And then when the bowl did what all physical things do, changed, moved, disappeared, you felt like you were losing yourself. But you're still here. You're still whole. Nothing essential has been lost." The monk stood very still, letting her words sink in. "This is what attachment does," the teacher said softly. "It takes our love, our care, our appreciation, all beautiful things, and adds fear to them. It says, I must keep this forever or I will be destroyed. And that fear poisons every moment, turning love into desperation, turning appreciation into anxiety." She paused, looking at the bare tree again. "In spring, this tree will bloom. The blossoms will be exquisite and then they will fall. If I clung to each petal, demanding its stay, I would suffer endlessly. But if I appreciate the blossoms while they're here, knowing they'll fall, I can experience their beauty fully. maybe even more fully because I know they're temporary. The monk looked up at the branches, seeing them differently. Can you love without clinging? The teacher asked. Can you appreciate without demanding? Can you hold something precious with an open hand? These questions go to the heart of Buddhist practice. The Buddha taught that the root of suffering is this clinging, this tanha that never feels satisfied. We crave pleasant experiences and cling to them when they come, trying to make them last. We crave to avoid unpleasant experiences, clinging to the hope that we can control what we feel. We even cling to our own sense of self, terrified of changing, aging, becoming someone we don't recognize. And all of this clinging creates dukkha, suffering, unsatisfactoriness, a constant underlying anxiety that life isn't quite right because it won't stay still. The freedom the Buddha pointed to isn't about not caring. It's about caring deeply while holding lightly. So, how do you practice this in your actual life? Start by noticing where you're clinging right now. What are you afraid to lose? Not just physical things, but ideas about yourself, relationships, identities, expectations, about how your life should look. When you notice that clinging, that tight grip of fear, see if you can soften it just a little. Not by forcing yourself not to care, but by remembering the truth. Everything changes, and your clinging can't stop that. It can only make the changing more painful. Practice appreciation instead of grasping. When you're with someone you love, instead of thinking, I can't lose this person, try thinking, I'm grateful this person is here right now. Feel the difference. One creates anxiety, the other creates presence. When you have something good in your life, a job you enjoy, a place you love living, a moment of peace, let yourself appreciate it fully without immediate